Hello. Hi, Susan.
Hi, Emily. It's lovely to be here today with you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the podcast, Coffee with Ems. Really pleased to have you on the show today. So, to introduce Susan. So, Susan Popoola is the founder of a company called Mosaic Fusions, and she's going to explain to us a little bit more about what she does. So, over to you, Susan. Explain a bit more about yourself and your business, Mosaic Fusions.
So, Mosaic Fusions is a consultancy business, support business, very much focused around working with purpose. I talk about purpose-driven leaders and organizations to develop harmony, impact, and legacy. So, I mean, I could talk about that in more detail, but I guess we'll come to that as we get into a conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's really interesting to hear, what you get involved in and how you support various different businesses with your approaches there. So, first question would be around the sort of collaboration with teams and the impact that you have on working with leaders. So perhaps to give us a bit of an indication as to the work that you do and what impact that has on, leaders of businesses.
So I guess probably it's worth talking a little bit about the journey as to where I've got to where I am today, which is all
Yeah, of
part
course,
of the
yeah.
impact. So
Mm.
my career really started probably about 25 years or so back. Um, Probably a bit longer than that. Um, and the key is it's all about working with organizations on the people side. And the first major project that I had, it was working with an organization that wanted to develop an HR system. And they'd looked at different systems, they decided on what they wanted, but what they hadn't decided it is what they needed to do for them as an organization. And so this was early on in my career. I ended up doing a full HR system implementation, what they'd have paid a consultant big money for. So that was
Mm.
from talking to different stakeholders, from the chief executive to managers to people in HR to understand the need, to doing to doing a review of the organization structure, organization roles, organization pay, and designing the system, and then going ahead and implementing it. And so that was me in
Mm.
my early 20s, going through that whole
Right.
process, more or less not having been told this is what you do, but instinctively, based on the way I think, because we have different thinking styles, um, being able to work out that this is what needs to be done and doing it. And moving on from that organization, being able to work with different organizations, whether it was from a systems perspective that they needed to do a new system, which for me is a strategic management tool. It's technology. I mean, we're talking about it so much now when we're talking about AI, but it's always been there as a strategic
Mm.
management tool. So I very much, I mean, so that's one key thing, using systems to support organizations in order to be able to clearly understand their organizations, to be able to work more effectively in terms of working with people, because the systems help to lay out things. But even without the
Mm.
systems, I do a lot with organization leaders around the strategy, enabling them to better say, well, as an organization, this is what we're trying to achieve. And so, how do the people fit into that?
Mm.
Working with them in terms of enabling their teams to work more effectively together. So I do different things, but a key is around what I call mosaic maps, whereby getting people to understand each other better and what people bring and how it all fits together, down to working one to one with business leaders, supporting them in understanding what they're trying to achieve, how to work more effectively with people, and so much more.
Mm.
So that's just a broad overview, touch
Yeah,
on a few
that's
key.
really, really helpful. Thank you. It's really that, like you say, that efficiency, productivity. So when you talk about that, it's obviously first of all the structure, the technology, the processes in there, but then it's also like the team as well, and that communication, that effectiveness, and that's in line with the name as well, Mosaic, which I like, which is explain to me why you call the business Mosaic Fusions.
So that's came about on the basis of a book that I've written. I've written 3 books actually to date.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um, and just touching briefly, the first one, Touching the Heart of Milton Keynes, a social perspective. The second one, Consequences Diverse to Mosaic Britain. And then the third one, Male Perspectives on the Value of Women at Work. So having written Consequences Diverse to Mosaic Britain, the fact that we are diverse in whatever way you look at it, the key is how do we work more effectively together, whether that's in society or in the workplace. I I started thinking what we really want is something that is mosaic, because
Mm.
and that's reflected in my thinking in the book, looking at the disparity, how we became diverse, and some of the challenges and what we ultimately need. And so, if you think of a mosaic, you see all the different colored pieces of different shapes and sizes and different forms, and that's us. Um,
Mm.
that's us in our rich diversity. And if you think of those different pieces coming together, it creates something beautiful. But those pieces don't stick together unless there's glue. And the
Wow.
glue
Okay.
is our common interest, our common values, the curiosity, the purpose that we have, all those different things in different places that bind us together. And so that's the concept of a mosaic. And that's what I work towards, whether it's in
Amazing. No,
organizations
that's
and
really
other
nice.
spaces. Yeah.
Like symbolism with how your work and how it's working. What would you say is the reason why it's important to have that diversity, within a team? What do you think that brings to the effectiveness of a team?
Um, Different perspectives.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's very easy. The easiest thing to do is to recruit people that look like us, that think like us. I mean, it's easy. Oh, she's just like me. He's just like me. He's gone
Yeah.
to the same university, so I know that actually there'll be that clear alignment in how they do things, and I'm comfortable with that. So there is something that draws us towards sameness. But someone
Mhm.
coming from a different perspective, bringing something different, brings something new, a
Mm.
different way of thinking, a different way of seeing things, different ideas. It means what we do is richer,
Mm.
especially if we have the diversity and allow people to really show and be who they are. Because sometimes we might go out and recruit a peacock into a team of pigeons and want the pigeon to behave like a the
Yeah,
peacock to
and then
behave
it
like
ruins.
a pigeon. But so the
Mm.
key is different perspectives, different understanding, different ideas. Innovation, creativity is key to the modern way of work, and different people bring that. You could talk about the social aspect, or the social this in term when I say the social aspect, the responsibility to be inclusive and include different people. But there's also society, the world we live in, the customers we are serving, they are diverse. And so if
Mm.
we just bring a narrow perspective, a singular perspective, looking through one singular lens, we can't serve people with our products and services as effectively as we would if we have different ideas and different thinkings and different views. And I mentioned the social, I mean, that side, that responsibility, but there's also the fact as well about brand
Mm.
reputation, and the fact
Yep.
that there are an increasing number of people who will say, I won't work, or I prefer to work with people who reflect the diversity. And if that's not reflected within an organization, I don't want to work with them.
Mm. I think, yeah, there's definitely two things there. Like you say, it's the brand, the employee employer brand, isn't it? You know, engaging with people that would like to join them as a business, but also the way that they operate as well, and how that becomes more effective to their customers socially, you know, how they communicate together as a team. When it comes to teams and actually making sure that everyone's ideas are included, would there be certain strategies that you'd suggest to companies to make sure that they're doing that, you know?
Yeah, and I can look at that from two key angles. The first relates to making sure the organization is clear about its purpose, its
Mm,
objectives, and its purpose and objectives overall. And
mm,
also when it comes to specific products, services, projects, or what have you, being clear about what it is that they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. Who is involved? Everyone is involved. I always refer back to my mum, who's told me everyone's important. So I talk about human value, whether it's the person that manages the office or the person that cleans the office, everyone's important and everyone
yeah.
has a key role to play. And that applies to a project or any initiative within an organization. So having being clear about what it is you're trying to achieve, and being clear about what each person's role is within. So each person knows this is what I'm responsible for, and other people know. So
Mhm.
you see that everybody's bringing value. So that's one
Mm,
part of it. I also talk about frameworks. There are some people that are very good at saying, this is what you need to do. So this is what you're responsible for. And you need to do this at 8 o'clock and this at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. And it's like dictating what you have to do specifically at each minute of the day. That's not really effective because we do things differently. So the key is, these are what you're responsible for, and if there are deadlines or time frames and whatever, that's taken account of. If there are legal requirements that mean that things have to be done in a certain way, if there are things pertinent to the brand, making them clear. But outside of that, it's so therefore go ahead and do it. And what support do you need to do what you need to be most effective? So those are two key things that I would, which are aligned.
implementing the ideas, isn't it, into action and making sure they've got the support around them to do it and the encouragement to implement any ideas as well. That's
Yeah,
great. And with the changes to the way people are working now, so since COVID, obviously a lot of teams become a lot more home based, and there's a lot more remote working now, which has been quite a shift, and companies are a lot more flexible around, you know, where people should work. How have you found navigating that, you know, with teams that are needing to collaborate better but work remotely?
and it's an interesting thing because in many ways it goes back to what I've just said. Because I remember before lockdown, we got to lockdowns. There were organization leaders who said, "Oh no, you can't work from home, you can't be effective, or you can't." I remember the young lady who was an accountant with an organization I was supporting, and she worked from home. She had her children at home. She'd wake up early, get some work done, and then she would um, spend a bit of time with her children, work, back to work. And then when they've gone to bed, she would continue working and with a focus of getting things done as opposed to working a specified number of hours. But there were those that said, oh no, she can't work effectively. And lockdown proved that that does work. And so then post lockdown, the organizations that have been wise with this have recognized that yes, at some there are things that people have been able to do more effectively, especially when people, they need thinking time to think about what they're doing and the how, and just get on with a report approach. So following processes like that. But there's some things that are collaborative that need other people's input, and whereby there's value in people being together in the same physical space. Not that they can't work remotely. And also,
Mm.
if you've got someone new to the organization, that there's value in spending a lot of time face to face so that they can have that support. And also, they're doing something, they've got a question, there's someone available to answer the questions,
Mm.
assuming that the leaders, the managers don't actually have closed doors anyway. So,
That's a good tip, yeah, for
yeah,
that sort
yeah,
of onboarding, isn't it? That sort of initial for somebody new, fair enough, there's a lot more flexibility once they've, been trained up and they're more comfortable, but initially that there is a bit more face-to-face interaction. Yeah?
yeah. And so the
Yeah.
key then is, what are we trying? It goes back to that thing, what are we looking to achieve? And what is required in order to achieve it? Is there a need for who needs to be in the office in order to achieve those things? Who doesn't? And what do
Yeah.
people want to do? What works better for them on the basis of their circumstances? Do they need to be in the so the times that there's a need for people to be in the office, um, to collaborate, to do things more effectively, or what have you. So on the basis of what you're trying to achieve, that's set down, and you could say there's a line drawn. And then
Mm.
there's the flexibility around individuals and personal life stuff. And they do intertwine a bit because, okay, as a team, we need to do certain tasks. There's certain things we need to do in the office or in the same physical space. So
Mm.
there's the whole conversation of, so when's the best time for all of us to be in that physical space? And also within our team, we might collaborate with other teams because we don't want to create silos. And then the conversation cross teams to work out what best works best more holistically, if that makes
So
sense.
the team are discussing that, and it's coming from them, isn't it? So it's all about that communication and deciding what's best, that works best for both, the business and productivity, but also the people themselves and what they actually need to do.
Yeah,
Because some businesses may suggest that they're in the office every day, but actually if that's not necessarily needed, then could they be a little bit more flexible? Would they get more out of their employees as well? Because they'd be more productive from home. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I think key with that as well is, it's, that contractually more often than not we employ people, and this is what your responsibilities are, and you're contracted 35 hours or 40 hours a week or what have you. But there's something about, so what is required, having a time frame for it, and then moving away, and that, okay, typically this can be done within that time frame of 35 hours. Uh,
Mm.
but then forget about monitoring the hours that they're working and focus more on outputs and outcomes.
Task being done, yeah. Task
Yeah,
actually being done, yeah, okay.
the
That's less
task and
micromanagement then, isn't
outcome.
it? It's
Yeah,
more project.
yeah. So I mean, and I
Mm,
think that's what we need to move to. We need to move to that for employees that work full time, but also
mm,
you have an increasing number of freelance workers as well, whether it's that they're working on a contract or what other form, or whether they work for their own organizations. But so focus away from hours to, this is what we're looking for you to achieve. Because I could be I could sit down at a desk for 10 hours or 12 hours. It doesn't mean that I'm getting a lot done.
no, exactly, and if you were just given tasks, in those 10 hours, you could possibly get 3 tasks done because you're gonna be motivated to get the tasks done rather than doing what you can do in the time space.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I
interesting,
might
yeah.
actually, within that, I might actually be someone that lives on the coast, and within that time frame, I might go for during in the middle of the day, I might go for a walk along along the seafront, or
Yeah,
go for a bike ride, take my dog for a walk, and I might, if you're someone that has attached the digit to my laptop, my computer, to see when I'm at my desk or not,
yes.
you might think I'm not working. But one, that's might be when I'm thinking and I'm coming up with solutions to things
Yeah.
and
And
all.
really important when we talk about well-being as well within teams, because if people are given a bit more flexibility like that, then surely they won't have that guilt around giving themselves time to go out and go for a walk or do what they need to do to look after themselves health-wise, be more active.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're right. And also, if you think then it's about what are you achieving? Agreed outcomes. What are you achieving? What are you doing? Which is reviewed. So making sure that they're realistic and they're practical. I mean, because different roles would have different outcomes. If you're someone that is, I mean, and that won't always apply because, like, if you're someone that is at the reception doing the all important role of welcoming guests or with whatever responsibilities you have, that might not apply with a role like that at a practical level. But with some other roles, that applies, but you're constantly reviewing. But key is if you're just you have to be at 9 here, 8 o'clock, and you mustn't leave till 6 o'clock, you almost become a widget in of yourself. You're
Robot.
more of a robot, but you have to be
Yeah.
in, out. But if there's more of a focus on what you've achieved and what you're doing, and there's a pride in being able to say that this is what I'm doing, then work in itself becomes more meaningful. And that
Mm.
mean especially when you know how what you do fits into the bigger picture, and that becomes more meaningful, and that in itself means that you're well that has a more positive impact on your well-being.
No, that's really interesting as well. Yeah, the achievements bit feeling more fulfilled and like purpose for your work. It's a lot more likely if people are feeling that way that they would stay within a company as
I was
well. So
about to say
that
that as well.
retention. Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. We spoke about interview techniques, so I wanted to pick your brains there about the different interview styles, whether that be, candidates are interviewing for positions or hiring managers that are actually asking the questions, because you've got different profiles of people. So, what would be your advice when it comes to, interviewing?
So as you said, there are the two sides of it. Um, and I'm going to start off big, and to some extent, both people are interviewing. They should
Mm,
be. If I'm applying for a job, I should be coming prepared with my questions to determine. I mean, I should have done my background research to have a greater insight into the organization. And you can do that through their website, LinkedIn, profiles, Glassdoors, all those places. Trustpilot will give you some insight into the organization. But also the questions that I ask with them and how I interact with them, how they interact with me. So in this day and age, it's not just about what the employer wants, it's what the individual wants as well, and doing their best to assess to find out about the fit. So that's almost, you could call it, that's a tip to both parties. So as an employer, be prepared for people to ask questions about you and to interview you. Don't ask
mm.
the question at the end, oh, do you have any questions for us, and then expect them to just say, oh, when will you let me know, or something like that. But
Yeah,
expect real
has to be
questions.
two-way, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's key, the engagement.
Mm,
For employers, I would then say, see the person, as someone that has value, and interact with the person at that level. Typically, before you get to an interview, you would have seen a person's CV or application. So you'll have had an idea whether this is someone that potentially you would want to work at. Typically, the technical skills. You might do assessments as well that give you a good insight. So then it's really about the person when you have an interview, when you're doing an interview. And
mm.
I think most fundamentally, I'd say if you're asking questions, and you often, a lot of organizations you'll have your key questions. These are the questions we have to ask. If you can make it conversational, then do. fit the questions to the person as opposed to just saying, reading out a question. And
Mm,
listen to what the person says. Don't expect that you have to have a set answer. Let it be based on the way the person, who the person is, and the way the person thinks. We've spoken about diversity. That comes to play in how a person will respond on the basis of their personality type, on the basis of their experience, their background, their whether they're neurodivergent or what have you. All those things come to play. So key for me is engage with the person on the basis of who they are. And don't get
yeah.
too worried if a person is quiet, to be spoken, or what have you. Recognize that people often come to on interviews nervous, or shy, or what have you. So that thing about how you engage with them is really about how you get the best out of them and really find out who they are and what they bring. And as I've said, as a person, just come with as much knowledge and understanding of the organization, be ready to engage. And that's easier when you've already done your research.
No, that's great advice. Thank you. I like how that approach then is really genuine towards the candidate, really understanding of them, and then almost tailor making it really to sort of what they'd like to hear about. I always say it's best to understand about that the candidate first, and listen. Like you talked about communication, it's all about listening as well. We're not just responding to what they say, but actually
Yeah,
confirming that you've heard what they say, so they feel
yeah.
listened to.
And I think, yeah, and the key with that is sometimes, and I've been to interviews at times where it feels as if you're testing me. And don't do that. Don't do it as a test. Do
No.
it to find out about the person as opposed
Yeah.
to test the person. Do it so that the person has a positive experience of
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
whether you employ the person or not, so they become, I talk about the person becoming a brand ambassador because they really enjoyed that experience.
It's all down to the experience, isn't it? People
Yeah,
remember an experience, how they felt, don't they? They always remember that rather than necessarily what was said. It's how how it was said, how it was delivered, how they felt at the end of that interview, how engaged they felt they were on them. That's really key as to whether they're going to want to work there. So
yeah.
really, really important part of it.
And then the
Mm,
final thing I would say in relation to that as well is, I mean, for both parties, especially the employer, you get on well with the person and you like the person and what they bring, but make sure that it fits what you're looking for, or you can
mm,
adapt what you can adapt what you need to who the person are, who the person is, because sometimes that you find that employers think, oh, I really like the person's great, the person can do this and that, but actually that's not what you're looking for. So you then recruit the person and you try to squeeze the person into something.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because you like them, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean they can do the job either. So it's got to be
yeah,
both, hasn't it? They've got to be able to be the right person to fit the need first,
yeah,
and then also the the right person to join the company. So, yeah, no, that's great advice. Thank you. We touched on the Miles Biggs personality profiling as well. So I just wondered what your take on was for that when it comes to teams and communication with different people. Do you feel that that's important to understand different profiles of people within teams?
yeah. I mean, Myers-Briggs, as you say, it's a profiling tool,
Mm,
which will give you insights into different people, how, I mean, their natural predispositions, should I say, in terms of whether they're introverted, extroverted, whether they think, how they engage, how they analyze things, all of those different things. Myers-Briggs is one. There are a number of others like Insights, Clarity 4D, all different ones that all do that. There is a value in them,
yeah.
because some of the things that we've spoken about in terms of how you engage with different people and see people come to play, that they enable you to do that better, because If you know that you're talking to someone that is more on the introverted side, if they speak quietly, if they're I remember interviewing someone who was very introverted, and he would actually look outside when he's talking, and he's like thinking and engaging, and you think, wait, I'm here, focus, but actually no, that's the way the person engages. So
Mm,
tools like that are useful in
mm,
helping you to understand how people engage. Also, not just at the interview stage, but on a day-to-day basis. You know that there's some people, when they send an email to you, it's very short and sharp. I had one person recently, he sent messages and he wouldn't even put my name. It was just straight to the point of, this is what it's about.
yeah.
And I thought, oh, okay. At first, there's the thinking, oh, okay, what, I'm Susan, by the way, because, but that's the way he
Try to use them
communicates.
maybe would be nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, some people are very like that, aren't they?
yeah, but
Mm.
when he got on the phone speaking to me, he was the nicest, warmest
Amazing, yeah.
but so if you want that, you can take time to get to know people on a one-to-one basis, and
Mm.
begin to recognize patterns. But if you want that additional support to better enable you to understand the different styles and how people communicate and engage, and how you might adapt your own communication engagement to different people, then profiling tools such as Myers-Briggs can be useful.
Really, really help with that.
It's
No,
just
that's
it's
great.
that you
Thank
don't,
you.
I would just say, don't get religious about them.
No, yeah, there are tools that can be used, but
Yeah,
more understanding that the person itself, once you understand that person and you ask them the right questions and you get to know how they prefer to be communicated with,
yeah,
then it's not one size fits all. Everyone works in a different way, learns a different way, communicates in different ways. It's appreciating that, isn't it, to be the most
yeah.
effective.
And it's
Um,
also knowing, because like my Myers-Briggs, I mean, well, I am by nature introverted, but most people don't believe that,
no, I wouldn't
because
think that. Yeah.
exactly. Well, we live in an extroverted world, and so I've learned how to adapt. And it's like, after, I mean, sometimes like I'll go on stage and do a speaking engagement, and I'm like this, but afterwards, let me
Yeah.
have some quiet space and re-energize and get, so there is that.
You're sort of natural and then you're learnt, is that right? So different
Yeah,
types. Mm.
yeah.
And what's your taking on this concept, a concept that you work by, which is harmony and impact within teams. So what is the concept behind, harmony and impact within teams?
So harmony, I mean, I talk about creating harmony, whether it's gender. I mean, so people talk a lot about um, diversity, and they talk about creating equality or equity. Um, and I talk about creating harmony, whether it's gender, whether it's related to really social issues or the workplace as a whole. And to some extent, it's reframing things. So it's really it's so if you think of harmony, whatever comes to mind, it's something where we're working together. So it's really about how we work together. um and that's very much about the relationships and the communication and understanding different people and what they
Mm,
bring in whatever space or circumstances, and therefore drawing out the best in people, so we have a positive impact, if that makes
mm.
sense.
Then that's a positive outcome, isn't it, once you do it that way? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. And in your experience, how do men and women navigate the workplace differently? So, and then what are the implications of this, in leadership and teams?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I talk about, I mean, as I mentioned, I've written 3 books, and I'll show you my
Yes.
third book,
Yeah.
because it's funny because it's
Mm.
a purple cover.
Oh,
I don't know
the
if you know
purple
a
brand.
purple.
Love it.
So that's my
So
third
people
book.
within that work. Ah,
Yeah. So, and specifically, it's male perspectives. And the
okay.
reason, just to contextualize the question with the
Yeah,
book.
please. Yeah, thank you.
So for me, I recognize that for a long time we've been talking about inclusion of women and women's progression within the workplace and the challenges of that and not the progress. Women, however, being just as capable as men, not more capable, but just as capable. Men not being more capable, and I was concerned about the limited progress, and so I interviewed a number of men in order to gain their perspective and insights because they're not often included in the conversation. And I guess from that, it was like understanding the differences and understanding how we navigate differently. And it's not that this is what all men do and this is what all women do, but
General,
recognizing
yeah.
that
Mm.
typically we are nurtured. You could talk about nature, you could talk about taught and nurture, but we are nurtured, and ultimately, so we typically navigate differently. And I just highlight a few key things in terms of the
Mm.
workspace.
Okay, yeah.
Men typically come into the workspace with more of a confidence and assurance because they've been brought up to say this is you. You lead, you take charge. They typically do that more so than women. They're more likely to put themselves forward for roles, whether they meet all the competencies or not. They're more likely to ask for promotion. They're more likely to apply for to ask for to negotiate salaries, to ask for increases. They're more likely, and you're in your, so tell me if this doesn't align to your thinking. I mean, to your
No, it
experience.
does. No, it definitely does, and it just rings bells because I was having a conversation yesterday about the gender pay gap, and the big question is, well, women aren't paid as much as men, and it's a big issue. But what you just said there, it is the root of why that is. Is it because the women aren't as confident to ask for that salary rise? Actually, if you
Yeah,
don't ask, you don't get almost, and maybe men are a bit more confident to ask for it, and that's
yeah,
why they are paid more, but that could be
yeah.
part of the
It
problem that
is. I actually do workshops or master classes around in that area, and specifically I'm doing one around gender pay gap, why we have the gender pay gap. Um, but to touch on that, there is the confidence or the assurance. Men typically are more focused on this is what I want for me. Women are, or on the other hand, more focused on this is what we need as an organize. I mean, on us, and
we
the
decide.
organization
Mm.
would do the best by us, and we've got to think of everyone. And so I just trust that they will do right by me. Well, men are more likely to think, well, this is what I'm worth, and therefore this is what I will. Um,
We're
what
a
I,
lot more trusting as well, aren't we? A lot more, yeah, like the words that you use there, that more sort of, conscious of the people around them, and whereas, it's a different approach, isn't it? That
yeah,
the men might perhaps would have. So
and it's not that one
yeah.
is right or one is wrong. It's
Mm.
it's a different approach. And I mean, and you could people talk about intersectionality, and you could then for drill down, and you could find that okay, if you talk to it's not all men that do that. The background of men from minority backgrounds might be less inclined to do so. And so I mean, and there's some
Mm.
women, one of the men that I interviewed for my book, he spoke about how he's teaching his daughter to negotiate for what she wants. And
Mm.
she's 8 years old, but he
Oh, really? It's
yeah,
not her young. That's
yeah.
great. That's so
Like if she
wow,
wants
great in
something
that
at
age.
home, she's like, can I have this? I would do this, and can I have this? um,
Very good negotiation skills. Children do get the hang of that, don't they?
yeah.
But
So
no,
it's
that's interesting, yeah.
So there are all
Mm.
of those that there are those factors, and the organization as well. What structures do they have in place in relation to pay? Um, is it based on who negotiates? Is it or who asks for a pay increase, or do they have set structures as well?
Set
So,
structures definitely make a difference, and I think that's where it is a lot more fair then, isn't it? It's an equal playing ground, it's no more fair, it's, based on, your experience and your ability to do the role then when you've got, like, set gradings, and salary levels that people should be at, when they're a certain you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even within that, you do still have like the spinal points or the so it's a band, but do we automatically start everyone at the bottom of the band unless they say no, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's still discretionary, isn't it? And
Yeah.
thing is that tends to happen as well is once a company knows what someone's currently on, they'll do their best to make sure that it's very similar to what they're currently on, and they're not actually giving too much of a pay rise. They're basing it on previous salaries, and if they've never
And
had
yeah,
an improvement, it's
that
difficult.
can be a challenge in and of itself. I mean, and that's another generalization. Men are more inclined to move from one job to another, and
Mm.
that in itself can give greater leverage for them to get higher
Yeah,
salaries
yeah.
rather than being in the same organization. The loyalty that women are more likely to bring and staying within that place organization can actually work to a disadvantage when it comes to increases because you're still within that space as opposed to going to a new place whereby I was on the salary, assuming everyone's honest about what the salary is anyway. But it's easier
Yeah,
to
that's
to
it.
get a jump based on moving from one place to the other. So there is that is another factor that has an impact.
Mm. It's different behaviours, isn't it? Rather than looking at sort of like you say, like men and women, it's the different behavioural types, isn't it? And what
Yeah,
people are actually doing and what they need to do to improve that. And you're hiring at the moment as well. So you spoke about so you're looking for some interns in the summer. So and you're sort of looking at candidates. One thing we talked about was cover letters, and I wondered whether you could explain about why you particularly like to see a cover letter and the importance of that.
yeah. So,
Mm.
so this is to be the second year that I'm recruiting interns to work with me over the summer because
Mm.
I love working with young people and giving them the opportunity, and they actually bring an amazing amount of value and actually get a great return from the experience as well. And one of the key things that I did last year and I'm doing again this year, which helps a lot in the process of getting the right people, which I recommend for anyone, is making sure that you don't just have a CV or an application, but a cover letter, because the cover
Mm.
letter, I mean, a CV tells about the experience that you have,
Mm.
the experience and the qualifications and all of those things. But the cover letter says more about how you engage, your engagement, what your understanding of the role, because that's and how you see that you're so how you see yourself fitting in that role and how interested you are. So those are key reasons why I
Yeah.
like to see a cover letter. And then for me as well, you can see I'm already smiling because I
Yeah.
love it when I
Exciting.
see the covering letter and it shows that the person has a good understanding of the role.
Mm.
Um, it shows how they are the right person for the role. You can see the connection, and I get
Mm.
excited, and I think, yeah, I want that
Yeah. They've
person.
made the effort, they've been proactive, they obviously really want this opportunity. So you're much more likely to give that to somebody that really wants the opportunity and has really made the effort and done the research. And yeah, you're much more likely to take that person on, aren't you?
Yeah, and plus the fact as well is, a lot of the time these days, CVs, there's standard templates for
Mm.
CVs, and people that professionally help people to write their CVs. So the CV is not really telling me who you are or whether this was is you. I mean, whether you're the person that did the job, whether it's your positioning yourself or someone else. But a covering letter gives you so much more.
Just gives you a little bit more, yeah. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on the approach that we have here at Tech Recruits here to connect with the video profiling and doing a short video profile with the candidate, explaining their experience and what they're looking for? What are your thoughts on that?
I think in it's a great idea. I mean, it's you could call that a different form of a covering letter. It should I say serves a similar purpose. Um,
Yeah.
So you could say, actually, Susan, why are you still doing covering letters? Why don't you just get people to do videos? Because then you get an immediate feel, not just for what they have to say, but how they engage and communicate.
Mm, yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I'm glad that you like the sound of that. Thank you so much for joining the podcast today. It's been really interesting. I've learned a lot. I hope others will do too. Is there anything else that you would like to add at all? Or perhaps tell us about the books that you've got so we can look them up, your books?
So my books, as I mentioned, and I'll show them to you because I am very
Yes,
proud to have
please.
written 3 books,
Yeah,
even though
yeah, I
I'd
bet.
have liked to have written more by now. So my first one is Touching the Heart of Milton's Kings: A Social
Mm,
Perspective. And that really talks about Milton Keynes, new town, now city as a place, and the dynamics in relation to people. So it talks a bit about Milton Keynes as a place which is more than concrete cows and roundabouts, but also the human
mm,
dynamics. Then my second book, as I
mm,
said, Consequences, Diverse to Mosaic Britain. That's another social perspective. I wrote that a
mm,
number of years back, and that was at the time that you had the BNP on Question Time, and people were saying, is everyone that supports the BNP racist?" And I'm like, actually, no, you need to look deeper. So it looks at some
mm,
of the issues that have led a lot of white working class people, especially, to become disengaged, and the challenges that they
mm,
face. Some that actually links into some of the people's voting for Brexit. So, what are the challenges and issues? So, having an understanding, insight into those, how we became the diverse country we are, from um, eh, the impact of empire. The sun never
mm,
shone on British Empire. So, the key is we're all here and everything that's happened since, but how we ultimately need to learn to live and work together. So, that's my
yeah.
second book. As I mentioned, my third book, Male Perspectives on the Value of Women at Work. And that's really just being able to look at how men and women navigate the workplace differently, so men can understand better what women uniquely bring, how to better engage with them. Women can understand, actually, this is from the perspective of men, the value we bring and how they see some of the challenges. And then for people within organizations, leadership, so these are some of the structural changes that need to take place in order for us to more effectively attain the value of men, women, and everyone else in the workplace. So those
Mm,
are my three
fantastic.
books. And I guess,
Lovely, and that's really linked to obviously having that harmony and then therefore the impact of that efficiency within the team, within the businesses there
yeah,
that
so you can
you're
see
working.
how it
Yeah.
all comes together. And the books are available on Amazon or via my
Amazing.
website, as the rest of my work. So I guess if people want to find me, I mean, you can find
Yes,
me on
please.
LinkedIn, Susan Popoola, or you can find me anywhere else. Or if you go to
Yep.
www.mosaicworld.live, so Live.
I will find all
Um,
the information on there. Lovely. Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And
Likewise, I've
yeah,
enjoyed
please reach
talking
out
to
to
you.
Susan if you'd like to speak with her further. Yeah. Thank
Thank
you. Speak
you.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye.